Welcome to another edition of Walnut Grove Cultural Conversations, where two local pastors sit in front of a bookshelf and talk to you about some things going on in our world and in our culture, and kind of giving us a good framework maybe to think about it in. And so as we were discussing what to talk about, today being Good Friday, we wanted to take an opportunity to maybe slow down a little bit and give a perspective for what this day means in the following hours here. And so as we come together, let's see what we can come up with here.
Yeah, I think it's interesting when you hit the slow button that you think back to Jesus' words that whoever would follow him must deny themselves, take up their cross, and follow him. And so if Jesus is leading us down this path to Good Friday, we need to pay attention. But sometimes I think the temptation is to treat Good Friday like going to the movie Titanic. You see Titanic in theaters?
Yes, I did. And I cried like a baby, but that's fine. We'll get to that to another podcast.
Right. This is not a counseling podcast.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll get a couch next time.
Yeah, you can lay down and I'll ask you Freudian questions.
Great.
But if you ever went to Titanic, or maybe someone invited you to Titanic. No, let's not joke. Everyone went to Titanic.
Yes.
But I sat there saying, I know this ship hits the iceberg. And it kind of made everything before that, like I didn't get too invested in some of these people because I know they're going to hit the iceberg. And the temptation sometimes as we come to Good Friday is you say, you know what, I know the end. And the problem with that is we fail to live in the real emotions that would have been between Good Friday and Easter morning.
Yeah.
Right? That trough. Right? I mean, I've heard people describe it like, but there's some of these troughs. C.S. Lewis talks about the troughs of life that we think God isn't going to work in at all, but he actually works in to a more full degree or to a fuller extent because we're broken, we're open. And you think about those disciples on that Friday, and their whole world falls apart.
Yeah.
And some of you can probably relate to moments like that where your whole world seems to fall apart, and then it's in that trough of like, okay, God, what's going to happen next?
You know, I think of Peter, right? Think about Peter in these hours, because Peter had made this promise, I will never betray you, Jesus.
Yeah.
I will never betray you. And then he calls him on it. Jesus calls Peter on that and says, you're going to deny me 3 times before the rooster crows. And as that story unfolds during the story of Jesus's trial and arrest, you see even a little girl intimidates Peter into denying Jesus. Yeah. And so Peter, in his life, on his Good Friday, his Savior, who he denied 3 times, who predicted it rightly, he doesn't have a chance for redemption.
Yeah.
He doesn't think he has an opportunity for apologizing.
Yeah.
Think about that hopelessness and the heart sink that is happening to him.
We don't even have to guess what that looks like, right? You got the other side of that, the other guy who rejects Jesus, Judas.
Yeah.
Right? And he goes through the same Good Friday, probably feels the same emotions, and he decides it's not even worth. There's no hope here. It's hopeless. It's nihilistic. The only thing I can do is end this life. And so he hangs himself.
Yeah. So now you're 12, right? The 12 closest to Jesus. You've had one betray him unto death. You have another one who has betrayed him multiple times.
Unto his own death.
Judas went to his own death, and then Peter denies him. So now you're down to 10.
Yeah.
And they're all spread out and hiding.
Yeah.
And the picture that we get of the disciples is not bravery, is not their They're returning back to their trades. They're returning back to all these things. And you have to remember...
Who is it? Mark runs away naked?
Yeah, that's a wild story.
I love that story. He's so scared, he just streaks off. He doesn't even care about his clothes.
Yeah, that's in the Gospel of Mark, by the way, I believe.
Yeah, and he doesn't say his name, but he's like, I know a guy. Right? I have a friend who ran away naked when Jesus got arrested.
And so the temptation, right, is to race right to the empty tomb.
Yeah.
Is to not live in the moment. It's to not let those 3 days those passing hours of hopelessness to sit on us.
Yeah.
Because it looks like evil has won. It looks like death has won. It looks like Jesus was just another person who showed up and said he was another Messiah who was going to come and save, and then it all fell apart.
Yeah.
And so I encourage you guys this weekend, spend some time doing that, right? Spend some time thinking about and meditating on those moments, on those realities that those disciples really lived in, that the people who followed Jesus, the disciples who followed him, and the people who killed him, who also thought they won.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many facets to it.
There is. And that's the beauty of it. You can look at this every single, probably day, every year, and come at it from a different perspective or different angle. But how easy is it to get to a place where we think we know the end of the story? And we think we know a good ending, or we think we have a bad ending, and God's saying, right, you don't see the full picture. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, like Aaron said, just an encouragement to really just spend some time feeling what they would have felt, some empathy for where they would have been. And so then when Easter comes, you can understand the contrast that would have existed, this low of lows to the greatest of highs, and then ask yourself, is it really a surprise that the disciples went from locked up, scared of the world, right? Scared of a girl challenging them, locked the door, double bolted, to world changers.
Yeah. Because they were living in the reality of the ultimate victory. And that's the same thing we can live in. But like I said, don't rush to that.
Yeah.
I think fall into that.
I think if you skip some of the low, you never really get to appreciate the fullness of the high.
Exactly.
And so experiencing that low, that brokenness, that uncertainty, allows the certainty of Christ when he returns. Just imagine that joy when he walks through the door and asks for some fish.
Imagine being
fish and chips.
Imagine being in that race, right? It's John and Peter. Is it John and Peter? They're racing to the empty tomb because they've been told that it was empty.
Mary comes back,
and they're racing to go see what it was. Imagine that moment of jubilee when you get there.
Who won?
Out of breath. I can't remember. Was it?
I think Peter.
I think Peter won. Right?
He had more reasons to run.
Yeah. But they were in the middle of that. You called it a trough.
Yeah.
They were in the middle of that trough. They were in the middle of that valley of the dark night of the soul.
Shadow of
And so realize that God is working there as well. God was working in those 3 days. And God is working in our stories and in the midst of our troughs, in the midst of our dark nights.
Yeah.
And so that's our encouragement for this Easter weekend. And we just pray that it would be a interesting and a blessed experience for you to not rush straight to the empty tomb.
Yeah. Let God take what makes no sense on Friday and allow it to make perfect sense by the time Sunday comes.
With that said, we will see you guys next week, and much love. See you guys.
Cheers.
Be blessed. Cheers.